Hey, and we're back. Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Let It Cook, your weekly live coding show here on the VS Code channel. I'm James Montemagno, one of your hosts, and with me, the one and only Brigit. How's it going, Brigit?
I'm doing so great. How are you, James?
I'm so absolutely delighted because it's a Friday. The weekend's coming. It's going to be sunny. It's going to be nice. I'm going to get out of the house. It's going to be amazing. So we have people from all over, from South Africa, from Peru, from Slovakia. Wow, fantastic. Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's Friday. I'm super excited to be here. I feel like coming on these sessions is always so fun, getting to chat with you, other people on the team, getting to hear all of the awesome feedback from users and viewers. So, super excited to be here.
Yeah, and we had you and Josh on recently onto the VS Code podcast. Like and subscribe, vscodepodcast.com if you want behind the scenes on what the team is working on. And that was a super fun podcast episode. We kind of talked about like the past, present, and future of coding agents. And I don't know about you, but I've been using coding agents, more and more every single day, it seems like.
Oh yeah, I use it all the time, and I think that I'm seeing my mindset shift over the past weeks and months because I'm more comfortable and like, yeah, let me just kick off a bunch of stuff in the background, and I don't know. I think that's so cool to be able to do that.
If people don't know what a coding agent is, before we go into like demo mode, like how do you describe coding agents versus agent mode versus like CLIs versus whatever else code, all these things, right? How do you, kind of define it, Bridget?
Yeah, it's really cool because there's basically different ways to work with AI and Copilot depending on what works best for you or where you are specifically in your project's development. So I kind of think of, I think, three main categories. I think of, and this is just really like contained within VS Code or within the editor. I think of when you're actually typing and editing code, so kind of those inline experiences when you're working with code. I think of then synchronous chatting in some way. And then I think of asynchronous background tasks chatting, that kind of stuff. So with that, then kind of starting in then the first one, so that the inline, I would think that's editing with inline suggestions of you're getting ghost text completions, you're getting next edit suggestions. Maybe you're using inline chat, just things of like while I'm typing and working and editing in a file, I want to get AI's help as I'm working there. And then there's other times I actually want to do some brainstorming, some planning, some explaining, some chatting and iterating with Copilot and more of like a chat panel interface. And so that's what I think of with local agent mode in VS Code or Ask mode as well. And then sometimes you want to then just kind of bundle something up and send it off to the coding agent in the background. And so when we talk about coding agent here, and we'll be demoing that, that's really for like background or asynchronous tasks. So maybe I don't really want to iterate with Copilot right now. Or maybe I don't really have the time. I'm really focused on another task, or it's the end of my workday or something like that. Or I'm just kind of curious to see what Copilot can think of without requiring my input. So I can say, hey, generate a bunch of ideas and try implementing one of them or all of them.
Gotcha. And those are like you said in the background, so they're kind of like long running. You're not going to be watching it. It just kind of is happening somewhere else, probably on another machine, I assume.
Exactly. Yeah. And so when we're talking about the GitHub Copilot coding agent, that happens in GitHub Actions. So it's just off in the cloud. And so it's cool too, because if then you close your editor, you close your machine, you turn off your machine, that can still be working. And then you can go and access that as long as you have access to your GitHub account somewhere else.
And those could be anything. It could be a bug. It could be a feature. It could be a change in functionality. It could be the whole application. It could be anything, right, that you would do locally. So I think it's a good distinguishing factor is that there are agents, like you said, like there's the agent inside of VS Code, like the ghost text and the next edit suggestions. There's the agent that's in Ask Edit Agent, right? Agent is in the name. And then these kind of background coding agents too. My favorite thing to do, I don't know if you've done it, is I have now the GitHub mobile app. I've always had the GitHub mobile app forever, obviously. But I recently upgraded it to the latest version by re-downloading it, mostly because you can now fire off agent tasks directly from the GitHub mobile app. My favorite thing to do is to fire it off from the mobile app, just like a bunch of ideas. And then if I have my VS Code open, it'll like pop up in VS Code because it's just like right there. It's like, it's all happening. But I'll be right before I go to bed. You might have that idea in your head or that bug. Like, I tell you, you're testing it on mobile and you fire up the app and then boom, you fire it off and you wake up and there's a PR ready for you to review. It's beautiful.
Yeah, which is so cool because it feels like you can really parallelize so much stuff. And it's no longer, oh, like, let me refocus my attention on this other task, reopen up my machine. I just had this great idea. It's like, oh, I can just kick that off and not have to disrupt what I was already doing in my work or in my day-to-day life.
Yeah. And I think that you kind of talked about it earlier a little bit, but like, when you're ideating too, that's some of the best work that you could, work on synchronously, like with the agent mode, but also with the context. You could open an issue, or you could just like fire that entire context. Like if you were like, hey, I'm going to describe this feature, fix this, find this bug, you have like what's going on, then you can fire that stuff off too, right? So it's not just like an idea, one sentence. Like you can actually give it big prompts, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's cool is because you can really move between these different modes as well. Like it could be, hey, right now I was doing some editing and I was using inline suggestions. And then, hey, now actually I want to go do some more in-depth planning. So I'm going to use chat mode. And now I have this cool plan come up of a new feature I want to add or a new fix I want to add. I want to go delegate that. And then once the PR is done, I can then iterate on the changes or explain the PR and check it out in my local VS Code. And then again, I could use I could use local agent mode. I could use completions. I can use these different things to kind of all work together depending on like where I'm at in that part of the project.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I've also found that one fun thing that people maybe don't think about with like background agents or things that you could do. I was talking to Toby about this, and we're talking about how to set up a cron job, and I was looking at Loop, but I don't think that does what I want it to do. Maybe it will. I don't know. I got to figure it out. But imagine every night you were to say, hey, kick off a coding agent that looks at all the day's PRs, make sure there's tests for them, make sure there's documentation for them, like do a sweep and open a PR, right? Just kind of like this, like doubly check your work. You know what I mean? A pull request, PR, JC, that's a good question. Pull request inside of GitHub. And I think Brigit will be showing that stuff off as well today. So I was thinking about that too. I was like, wow, that's a great idea, because sometimes the AI likes to create documentation, or sometimes you tell it to create documentation for yourself even, but then sometimes it doesn't. And then it's like, oh, I don't got time to stop and wait and do some stuff. So I was like, oh, that's another like cool use case, kind of like if this, then that, you know what I mean? That like, Zapier integrations, but for coding agents, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's so cool hearing how everyone like thinks about these things, like hearing about your scenario there and then hearing how it resonates with users or other members of the team. It's really cool because they get inspiration of, oh, I didn't think about that. And then I could expand it in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you want to show it off? We'll get your screen up.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, cool. I'm going to bring it up now. Boom.
All right, perfect. So to set some context for the exploration demos usage of the coding agent we're going to be doing today, I'm using a real website that our team actually hosts and updates and everything. And it's for one of my other favorite things, which is dev containers. I can open up the browser so that folks can see what the site looks like there. So this is it. I just have it running locally, but it's also actually available for anyone to go to on containers.dev if folks want to check it out. So basically just explains what are dev containers, and the community can contribute their development containers. And for anyone who doesn't know what a dev container is, I could totally go off on a tangent on that. It's basically a way that you could package up the dependencies your project needs, and anyone who then opens and runs that project doesn't have to worry about installing them locally. So super cool and convenient and powerful feature. Also kind of worth calling out that we have these different remote experiences in VS Code, and you can use Copilot within them. So you could go and delegate to the coding agent, or you could chat with agent mode or get suggestions in line, all while you're connected to a dev container or a remote SSH box or the Windows subsystem for Linux. So really cool too that you can kind of take it another level and be, hey, I'm actually working on a remote machine and I can still use Copilot.
I do want to, before you even get, I'm going to jump back just to us. I was talking to Simon Wilson a little bit about this recently, about isolation, exactly what you're talking about. When you think about using a background coding agent, we just said it's happening in a pull request on some server that is not on your machine, right? Yeah. The thing is, if you have like a long cook, you're like really cranking on something and doing a bunch of stuff. One of the coolest things that I found is have a dev container, go into your dev container, and then you can let it do whatever you want. Like it could just kind of go, and like if you were in YOLO mode, you could just kind of let it do its thing, or like have a long cook, because it's isolated, right? It could run tests, it could do stuff, and you could be sure that like nothing is happening, right? Not that I've ever had anything happen, but it's like some folks want that like sort of security, mindset and security blanket. Like, okay, like these agents are doing stuff. They can actually do stuff on a machine, right? They can like move files around, and maybe you don't have to accidentally move a file from here or here. Instead of moving a file, copying a file, it might move one, and then, oh, where did it go? And you need to scroll back up to find it. It's in this isolated environment. So anyways, isolated environments, dev containers, so cool. And they work in code spaces, by the way. So VS Code everywhere. So anyways, continue. Sorry, Brigit.
VS Code everywhere. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So if anyone wants to learn more about that, I'm always happy to chat about that. Cool. But okay, and this code is also open source. So if anyone wants to follow along during or after the session with some of the stuff that we show off, you totally can on the exact same code that we have. Cool. Okay, so now that we kind of see what our project is that we're working with, I, just like we were talking about, James, I was doing some chatting with our local agent mode here. And so I was saying, hey, where's theming defined for my site? Is there any sort of customization that end users can set, like a dark and light mode toggle? I feel like that's kind of like a nice feature when I see that on a site. I'm like, oh yeah, I like being able to toggle that. And what's cool too is like really anything that we find to be a good addition here, since this is an actual site that like our team uses and hosts, we could go ahead and add it, and we can get user feedback as well. So then we can continue the process of then if we get an issue or something, we could assign that to Copilot and iterate from there. But cool. So local agent mode here, which probably a ton of folks watching have used or seen, gives me some insight. It goes through my project, shares some insight into what is and isn't available. So we see that there is no toggle, which I was able to see when I was on the site. And so, and it kind of guides me through and says, hey, so if you wanted to add a different mode or toggle, here are some of the steps that you could do. And so I think that then when we get to this kind of point in some of our local agent mode discussion and planning, it's a really good point where we can ask ourselves, hey, do I want to focus on this task right now? And if so, this is a great time that I could totally just stay in agent mode here, and I could synchronously iterate and go back and forth with the agent, watch its output, kind of pivot it, that kind of stuff. Or if I feel like I don't really want to focus on this right now, or I'm working on something else that can't divert my attention, or like, I don't know, I think that like a remote agent could handle this and it doesn't really need my input synchronously. Like I think it has a pretty good defined plan of, hey, I want to add this thing and I know where I should go add this thing. I think this is a really great opportunity that we can go ahead and delegate this to the coding agent to work in the background. So I could say, follow the steps outlined and add a dark mode and theme toggle. Make sure the toggle button is available at the top right of my site. And so here I'll expand this a little bit more so you can see everything. But we see we have our ability to go between our different local modes here. We have our model picker. But now we also have this cloud button. And if we hover over this, we can see that this is going to delegate this task that I've put into this chat prompt to the coding agent, which is going to work asynchronously and create a pull request on GitHub to work on this. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this cloud button. And what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and take a look at all the history that I have here in my chat. And so if you have been doing some nice planning, discussion, learning, iterating with Copilot locally, it's going to keep that context and it's going to be able to then incorporate that into the input that it provides to the coding agent to go work in the background. It's now I'm guided, hey, it's going to go ahead and continue my work in this repo. And I did have a local change already in progress. We're able to detect that, and I could choose either to include that change or ignore it, which is nice because if maybe you were working on a completely different task and then you had an idea of, oh, I'd love just to have the coding agent go work on this thing, you don't have to include unnecessary changes. Or if they are relevant, you could go ahead and include them. I'm just going to go ahead and ignore the change. And then we're going to go ahead and delegate this off so the coding agent can work on it. And a couple things I can kind of call out in the setup that I have here and that we're going to be looking at for kind of the rest of this session is a lot of great functionality comes out of having the Copilot extension vscode, but also having the GitHub pull request extension. This is a really powerful extension that then is going to let us do things like look at our PRs in a repo. It's going to let us look at specifically our Copilot on my behalf PRs, which is the PRs that came from the coding agent and delegating a task to it. It's going to let us look at our issues that we have for these repos or our notifications, and looking at issues, it's going to allow us to actually assign those to Copilot and to let the coding agent work on them there. And so it gives us all these really great different entry points to managing overall the PRs and issues for our repo, but also specifically the coding agent integrations too.
So if I want to use the background coding agent, which are tasks that are being delegated off, creating pull requests on GitHub with the GitHub coding agent, then I need this GitHub pull request extension, correct?
Yes, that's going to give you the most powerful integrations. That way you can really fully like access, create, review, check out PRs and see what the coding agent's been working on.
Perfect. I'll drop a link to that into the chat here. Now, I also want to ask one question here because you are working on a branch. I see it on the bottom left. It's under my face, which is gh-pages. I know it's not main. So when you fire this off, what is it working off of? How does it know what to work off of, for example? Like, is it working off of this branch? Is it working off of main? Like, did you how do you tell it what to do, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so for this website that I'm working on, we have it deployed through GitHub Pages. So then how GitHub has it configured is GH Pages is technically the main branch here, but I could have been working really on any branch, whether it's called main, GH Pages, it's not actually main, anything here. And the coding agent is actually going to go ahead and kick off its own branch to do its work. So you don't have to worry that it's going to contaminate the current branch that you're working on. But also that prompt that we had gotten of, hey, do you want to include the changes that are in progress? It'll include what was already like on the branch that you have open and working on. So if I have anything already committed to this GH Pages, for instance, that I was starting on, it's going to work from that base. But then you can choose on top of that, do you want to include the in-flight changes that aren't yet committed?
Okay. So like, for example, if you had half implemented that feature, let's say you got like the toggle working, you're like, oh, I designed the toggle. And then you're like, continue on. Like the option would be like just to tell agent mode to carry on, but now you got to go eat dinner. And like maybe it finished, maybe it's sitting there waiting for it to allow a run command, or you hit the delegate button and it takes all of your changes, which is the button that you may implemented, brings it to that branch, and then starts continue working on it. Did I get that right?
Yep, exactly.
Wow.
And we can see here, we get, after delegating here, we get this nice card in the chat view that gives us info about the PR that has been started and is a work in progress. And as the coding agent works on that PR, it's going to make updates to the description of it. It'll, of course, make changes to our code in that branch and commit them just in that branch. And you'll kind of be able to follow along if you're curious to see how the PR gets updated over time. And then as well, automatically, this nice chat editor opened up that gives us also a look at the PR. And then it gives us a look at the live session log and feedback that we're getting back from the coding agent. So if you want, you can follow along with its progress live. So we can see that it's still working, and we can see the different logic that it's going through, the steps, the files it's working on. And we can see that stream back live. And we can also see that for any previous sessions as well. We can go back and retrace what the coding agent did. So what we could do here is first we could say see more for this PR that's in progress. And this is one of those views that's contributed by the GitHub pull request extension. And so it's this really nice view that you can see, hey, so what is going on in this PR? What's the title? I get a link to the actual PR in my repo if I want to go to the web and verify that it is a PR there, or if I prefer reviewing there, or I want to share a link with my teammate. And I'll be able to see kind of the description here from Copilot, and Copilot, like I was mentioning, will continue to update and iterate this. So once it feels like it's in a pretty good state, the PR, and the work is done for this session, it'll go ahead and request my review since I'm the one who kicked off this session. And it'll usually give a pretty nice overview in the description here of what was added, what was changed. I might even include different screenshots of the before and after of my site or whatever project that I'm working on. And at any point, too, this is another entry point to go back to the session logs that are getting streamed here.
So those sessions, these logs, they're not happening on your machine. Like you have agent mode on the right. This is the chat. You have chat, the agent mode on the right. That's happening on your machine. But in the middle of the screen, those are being streamed in from that pull request, basically from the session.
Exactly. And so your coding agent sessions are also available on github.com, and you can look at the logs there and what was happening in the GitHub Actions compute. And if you were to look at those logs, it would be the same log and information here. So this is what's happening on that remote compute, but you get updates back to your local machine, so you can track it if you'd like.
Oh, very cool. I'm trying to find, is this the main one that you have, or is this a fork that you are working off of?
This is a fork. So if you go to the, let me open it back up in the browser.
I'm trying to follow so people can follow along.
Yes. So it's this devcontainers.github.io, and the original one is in the dev containers org. So if you replace dev containers with Brigit Murtaugh, which is my GitHub handle, you'll see this fork.
Perfect.
And you'll be able to see all my pull requests and all of the different testing that I've been doing. So folks can also see, as I've been testing out this flow, all the PRs that have come along the way.
Awesome. Very cool. Cool. Okay.
Cool.
So things are happening. So this is kind of similar to if I was working locally, but these changes are all happening off. So I see a bunch of commands, I see a bunch of things happening, and it's just working. Now, do you have to have this open, or like, why would someone have this open? Oh,
So sometimes sometimes it's curious to see how the agent is going to tackle something, or you're curious of, hey, like, does it seem like it's almost done yet? So you could see if it starts saying, great, I implemented all the features. Now let me test it, or let me make sure they're in there. So it's nice you can track kind of the status along the way. But I totally don't have to have this open. I can go ahead and close out all these things and it'll just continue working.
so
And
you could fire, forget, open another one, open 10 of them, and just like let it rip, basically.
exactly. And the PR view here from the GitHub pull request extension is a nice place to track your Copilot on my behalf PRs. And we also now, as of the last couple iterations, have this dedicated chat sessions view, which is also a dedicated look into all of the different coding agent sessions or even local chat sessions that you have going on.
Oh, very cool. Wow. Okay. How did you get that? Where did that come from?
So this is if you search in settings, it's just chat sessions view, and then you can enable it from there. So anyone could have access to this if you're in VS Code and have the latest version of the Copilot chat extension.
Wow. Okay, cool. So you go to your settings, search for that. And then there's local chats on top. And so these are like every chat, basically local, remote, any chat that's happening, your whole history.
Exactly. And this is going to be specifically scoped to the repo that I currently have open. And so right now, this is a way that we have it organized of, hey, these are specifically PRs and coding agent sessions that I have for the current dev container website repo that I'm working on. And
cool.
To kind of take a look at some, so we can see which one's in progress because we can see the spinner here next to it, and Copilot hasn't yet updated the title from work in progress. That's something it typically does as well. So if we want to see, for instance, this is a previous session I did that I was saying, hey, I want to go ahead and combine some of the pages of my site. And so it's kind of nice. We can kind of see a side-by-side here of, okay, so we can see that it looks quite similar to what was output for our previous session. I could even go ahead and split our sessions here so we could actually do a true side-by-side. This is another feature I like, being able to split editors, and then you can have all of these different things going at once. We can have our remote coding agent sessions here. We could have our local one over here. If we wanted, we could put a local one in the middle. Like, it's really up to us how we want to lay this out and track things. You get in these cool scenarios. We can have all these things open and going at once.
Yeah, pop it out into a new window, like just have like 1,000 coding agents all happening at the same time.
Yeah, however you want to manage it, kick off new sessions, it's all there. So we can see similarly to this one that's still a work in progress and going. We got a response from the coding agent that it opened up a PR. We could see its progress. And then as I scroll down here, when this session was actually completed, we get this nice view of what files were changed. So let me go ahead. I'll close out of this one for now. We have different options here. I could either individually click on each of these files. I could open up all of the changes at once and get a nice diff view of what I have there. Let me try zooming out a notch just so you can see that we'll get a nice side-by-side of what was existing versus what was changed. And with that pull request integration, I can actually go ahead and start adding comments as well. And so I can give feedback back to the coding agent, and I can specifically tag at Copilot. And if I do that, it'll actually send this as a follow-up message. So we have different ways. It's not just, oh, I got my PR and that's it. We can continue kicking off additional follow-ups to the same coding agent session, that same branch, that same PR, and it can keep iterating.
So it's just like if you created a PR, right? You might be iterating on your PR. You and I might be working on a PR together, and then you're like, "Hey, James, like that looks really good, but actually, like, you forgot to add a system default mode. Can you go add that too?" So you leave me a comment, blah blah blah. But in this case, you're telling Copilot, "Hey, do this thing," and then I guess is it gonna like get to work again on it, or like what's it gonna do?
Let me remind myself which PR we just opened up. I'm going to discard that comment just so I can keep track of here. Okay, so this is our one. Okay, so I was playing around a bit with doing some updated theming. And so I had asked Copilot to do a few different things. I had asked, maybe I don't want blue. Maybe I want it to be purple. And so if I go ahead and I can open up the changes here, I'll close out that one. And let's say maybe I don't know if I actually like this color, or maybe I want to provide like a theme color toggle or something like that. I could say at Copilot, let me get some more room. I think this might be a little cut off. Okay. At Copilot, actually, I want to provide users a few different purple options.
And orange.
Oh, yeah, let's do it. Sure. Purple and orange options. Provide multiple color options and let the user pick between them.
For all intents and purposes, what we're creating here is a Halloween theme, by the way. So purple.
Perfect. Orange. Okay. It's October. I love Halloween. Okay, amazing. So I can either start a whole review, but I just want to add this one off comment. That is fine with me. And so we're going to go ahead and add that comment. And then we'll see that Copilot was actually tagged in it.
Wow.
And if I go then over here, we will see that this was added as a follow-up to that same chat editor session. So the same coding agent session basically now had like an additional input added to it here, and it'll go ahead and kick off that work. It might take a moment to kick off, but it's nice because it's not just like you're stuck with, hey, that's kind of what the PR is, and you can't give Copilot any feedback. You can continue giving it feedback and following up.
And then,
yeah, go ahead.
You were saying like this is going to kick off in a second or two, right? Because like what's happening is you can almost think of it like it is GitHub. You got to think of it like GitHub Actions almost in a way where you like, do a commit, you do a thing, you open a PR, waiting for webhooks, waiting for a thing, waiting for a VM to spin up, and then like the things start to happen basically, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it might take a moment. We could maybe refresh, and kind of while that kicks off there, I could show another example of something we could do. So again, okay, so we can see it kicked off there. So now we can see that we have our follow-up session now has a spinner, and we can see that it's going ahead and kicking off that work. So we could have both of these open and see Copilot working on completely different tasks, but on the same repo. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
And something too that's cool is I'll split again, and I could either go ahead and create an entirely new coding agent session from here. And so while we were in our local agent mode, I was able to delegate tasks via this cloud button. But in case I just wanted to have a dedicated chat editor here that was dedicated to the coding agent, I can also similarly kick off tasks here as well. And we just have one option. So if you hit the send button or if you hit enter, this will also automatically delegate things to the coding agent in the background.
Oh, very cool. So when would you use one versus the other? Like when would you like recommend like, hey, I'm just going to go in and open a new chat versus like use my existing chat and then fire it off? Or does it really matter?
It technically doesn't really matter. It kind of depends of like how much conversation and planning you're doing maybe in your local agent mode chat panel. And so if I have this really long conversation and maybe none of it really feels relevant to what I want to go send to the coding agent, it might just be easier to create a fresh chat here. That way I don't have to start a new chat here, clear out my session, and then eventually go back to it. I could just keep this as is, and then I could think of something completely unrelated. Or maybe I want to do like some completely different planning. And so it's like, okay, I want to use this for planning feature A. I want to use this one for planning feature B. And now I can delegating to coding agent for feature B over here.
Gotcha. Yeah. Or I could imagine you're inside of a long cook, like actually like cooking something up. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have this other idea that I want to do this other thing. Or if I have to document this thing, then you would open a new chat. Cause like, you don't want to interrupt your current chat. Right. So
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then we saw one way that you can add a follow-up to the coding agent sessions by tagging Copilot in PR comments. We can also do follow-ups directly within the chat editor here. So we'll see that we do have an input box, and we could similarly just send a message and say, I don't know, say double check that all the code is commented well enough for a new user to understand it. And if I hit enter on my keyboard, or if I click this send button, this will now send this as a follow-up to the coding agent. And we'll see here that we get a slightly different output, because rather than me adding an @Copilot comment, I just provided chat input here. And so then it was vscode took care of that for us and added a comment itself to the PR. And then we'll similarly kick off a follow-up in this same agent session, the same PR.
That's cool. That makes a lot of sense. And then, if people are kind of looking here, and I think it's, nice that you have so many views happening at one time. But if you notice on the bottom, right, I think like it's very clear that the three in the middle are just chats, right? There's just send, stop, that's it. Whereas like the local agent mode, you're switching between modes, you're switching between models, you're doing things. Where the ones in the middle, they're chats, right? You're giving it commands to execute basically, and then it's going to go off and do that in the background. But it's going to figure out all the stuff for you, right? Where agent mode is in real time doing it on your local machine and doing things.
Yep.
Here's a great question from Eric.
Okay.
Can you have each agent work on its own branch, or is it only the current branch? How does it actually work with branching? We kind of touched it a little bit, but if you want to go into more detail.
Absolutely. That's a really great question. So the coding agent is automatically going to create its own branch for each of these tasks. And so that's a nice way that you don't have to worry about, wow, I just kicked off 3 really different things that are probably all going to touch the same files. And now I'm going to end up with these weird conflicts on my current branch. And it's going to like override local changes, or what does that look like? It's going to automatically, each of these was on their own branch. And then once I feel good about the changes from that branch into PR, if I'd like to then merge them into my main branch or whatever other working branch I was on, I can then do that individually on each PR and each of those working branches. And I think I could maybe show folks, I'll close out some of our many views there. I'll go over to the coding agent here, the Copilot on my behalf section, and we'll see at the top, I'll zoom in a notch, that Copilot for this PR wants to merge changes into my main branch, which is GH Pages, from this branch that it actually came up with a nice name for. So it gives us intelligent names as it can.
Very nice. And like you said earlier, if you were on a different branch, let's say you had already created a branch that was called like theme toggle, it would create a branch off of that branch that you had created.
Yeah.
So it's never, so like to Eric's question, or to answer Eric, it's never making changes on any current branch that exists.
Yep. It'll always create a new branch for this work. And then when I do follow-ups though, like these 3 different follow-ups that we just sent off, those are going to stay on the branch that was already dedicated here. So if let's say we had the add theme toggle branch that was already created for this theme toggle task, and I then send theme toggle follow-ups, it's all going to stay on that add theme toggle branch. It's not going to create add theme toggle 2, add theme toggle 3, and then you have like 100 branches from those follow-ups.
That makes sense. It's making just more commits on that branch and just following it like you would basically, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you wouldn't want all of a sudden like every single one to create a new PR and a new PR and a new PR. You merge over and over and over again. So that makes a lot of sense. Actually, you were kind of talking about this earlier, but Inbox was asking here about A/B testing and then choosing in real time, right? Like you talked about it a little bit. Can you go into details like how like you might do A/B testing with this type of background functionality?
Yeah, so I found a couple of different ways I do this. Either I'll go ahead and just like split my editor and I can create multiple different things here, or if I had any existing tasks, I could open them up. And I might go ahead and, or actually, no, let me take a step back. Because for instance, one of the things I was doing yesterday is I was exploring like updating the theming of this site and like what that might look like. I was asking Copilot in local agent mode to get creative of what are some interesting theme changes we could have here? Like I haven't made any theming changes to this site in a while. And it came up with like 10 different ideas. If you could add a font mode, you could add this mode, that mode. It came up with all of these different options. And so then I said, hey, implement option 1 you mentioned. And then I sent it to the cloud. I sent it with the cloud button. And then I was like, I actually like option 2 as well. So then I also then in the same chat session can say, hey, actually also go ahead and try implementing option 2, delegate that to the coding agent. And so then I could kind of kick off multiple parts from this same singular plan, delegate them to the coding agent. And then depending on what I'd like to do there, I can kind of like, maybe one flow I like doing is checking out different PRs. And so that was something I was actively doing yesterday as I was playing around with changing some of the theming. So I can show folks how I was doing that. Let's see here. So for instance, I had, let's update the site theme to VS Code Insider's green. So I was like, well, it's blue now. What if I want to go ahead and make it green? And so I went ahead and I'll need to restart my site. So I'll stop it for a moment. So I can go ahead and check out this PR. So this is also a good call to, you can now check out any PRs, whether they're Copilot on your behalf PRs or PRs you or someone else on the team made in this repo. And now that I have this checked out, I will launch my site again. And we'll go over to the browser. And as that loads up there, then I was able to see the color change here. And then I got into this nice flow where I just started switching between different branches that Copilot had worked on or different coding agent sessions and just checking out these different PRs and comparing like, oh, what does this look like? And just by being able to quickly go between checking out the different PRs, could be like, okay, so this one changed to this color. Okay, this one added this toggle. Okay, this one changed the font in this way. And then I could continue iterating and giving Copilot feedback. Like one of the times it said maybe it added something and I'm like, I actually don't like where it added it. Or, hey, you said you added this to the top right. I actually want it more in the center. And I can then go give that feedback.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I've seen that as well. So there you go. Boom. So I like that. So that means that one, your website probably, or your app, whatever you're building, needs to make sure you build it locally, obviously, and like run it. So like here, like you're able to spin it up, right? Just like npm run dev, and like boom, it's good to go, or whatever your stack is, or .NET run. And yeah, exactly. Like I like that idea. So if you had another branch that was like the theme toggle, you would pick that out. You would just check out, and then boom, 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 right?
Exactly. And
Yeah,
so
so
this
cool.
is the one that turned us to green. And so then let's see, I had one that was adding a glossary page to my site. So I could go ahead and check that out now. And I'm running with live reload. Live reload, I learned in my testing as well, doesn't fully work for recompiling some of the CSS changes. That's why I manually stopped and restarted. And agent mode helped me find that. So that's also a shout out to agent mode.
Nice.
But now we have this cool thing where, okay, I now just checked out, and before this glossary link wasn't here. So if you go to the production site, there's no glossary link. So I just checked out a branch that had a glossary link. And so now I'm able to kind of switch between different branches, try out different changes, compare them side by side. And I'm able to do all of that while staying completely in VS Code rather than having to like go to my repo on github.com. And if I felt like that was disruptive to my flow, I don't have to do that.
I think that's cool. Sam says it's a complete game changer. Yeah, I think that just showing it off, and like once you kind of grasp your head around what is happening, like you're saying, it's like and how you might work differently with these. I think it's really kind of really neat. And I think like an advanced scenario for local, which we haven't talked a lot about, but like Git work trees, right, are very, very interesting for local development work to switch between a lot of things, agents happening locally. But I agree. Like, I love the idea. What you're saying is like, hey, I have 5 ideas of how this might look. The old way of doing it would be like, build it out, test it, create another branch, implement it, test it, another, but now just like fire off, go, right? Which is so cool. Good question from Eric here. Is it using your custom instructions, either agents MD or Copilot instructions MD for prompts? Like, is it using the same stuff if that agent mode is like the coding agent? Does that work the same?
Yeah, so you can use custom instructions if you'd like. It's quite similar to where if you have custom instructions, you could send that over. So yeah, I think we'd love to kind of hear as folks try that out, how well that works. And if there's any kind of tips and tricks that you find to making the coding agent follow kind of your best practices. But yeah, you can do that. You can, to an extent, send it prompt files as well. That is something we're, I think, still kind of iterating on. But yeah, we're kind of thinking through these different flows of things that we already have for customization and speeding things up locally, and how you can send that off to the coding agent.
That's cool. We got a question here. I'm throwing you all off track. Whatever your demo was, Brigit, it's like we're going off track.
Yeah, I feel like we wanted to hit some of the main features. I feel like we got those. Now it's great just to kind of hear people's questions and what's interesting.
Jose, I don't know if I said their name correct, but they said that they've been trying out the coding agent for a while. They plan to do a lot of planning, and then they create issues, actually. One, I think they have 2. I'm going to ask a question on top of their question. But
yeah,
if you have a bunch of issues, is there a way of working with the coding agent there from VS Code? And then their question is more advanced, which I already know the answer to, which is like, if you had a bunch of issues, can the coding agent like pick up the next issue after it fixes an issue, basically? Which I have some thoughts on there. But how do you work with issues and the coding agent?
Yeah. And so with your issues, either in github.com, you can assign them to the coding agent, or we have the integration right here where we have this Copilot button here, and the tooltip is assigned for Copilot to work on. I know it's a little bit small, but if I click on that, that's actually going to go ahead and assign this task to Copilot. And if anyone's been assigning issues in their .com repos to the coding agent, this is going to work quite similarly, where Copilot will react to my issue with an eye emoji, and then it'll go ahead, just like we did in these other scenarios, it's going to go ahead and create a new branch and kick off a new PRN session to work on this task. So then the follow-up to that of then, could you have Copilot work on follow-up issues automatically? I think right now, kind of the best path we have for that is what we were showing with being able to send follow-ups either via comments or additional chat sessions, that if I opened up one of these here and sent a follow-up here, that's kind of the best way we have to continue iterating and saying like, hey, now there's another thing that I want you to work on based on this. But I don't believe we quite have a flow at this point that then says, hey, now go look at the issues proactively in my repo and go work on the next one or another one. I think that's a really cool idea, and that's great feedback. I don't think there's quite a flow for that right now.
Yeah, I could see, because you wouldn't want it to work on another. I mean, you can assign multiple issues, right, at the same time. So if you have multiple issues, you could just have it open multiple issues and assign those off. So any of these you can assign and
click Copilot icon on all of them and then kick off 5, 10, however many sessions.
I think the interesting part there to the question would be, if you have a flow that's like, okay, I know I need to work on this bug, and then I want it to work on this bug because they're kind of related, I don't want it to work on the same time. Wouldn't that be interesting? And it's a good feature request for the GitHub team, is imagining being like, okay, I'm going to merge this pull request, and then I'll say in the comment of the merge, be like, okay, now start work at Copilot on issue number 52 or whatever, right? And then it automatically assigns it. And that might, I don't know if that works, but that should work. That'd be cool. That'd be the way to do it, I think. Like on merge, right? Because that's kind of what the next issue would be that, unless you want it to be like a PR on top of a PR, that'd be wild. But anyways, good feedback for the GitHub team. So.
Yeah, and then it's nice too, because we get into here of, hey, especially for certain like personal projects or something, maybe for some branches or personal projects I work on, I'm kind of the only one in there. And so it's nice feeling like I have a companion with Copilot now of, hey, it can go ahead and spin off some creative ideas. It can review my code. It can work on issues that maybe I would have been the only one to work on otherwise. So I like that idea of then having a flow where it's able to make a little bit more of a decision, if it can be an even more autonomous contributing member of this project.
Yeah. Sam says here, he's been always looking for more ways to be more efficient. Mostly he's been using just the github.com interface, which you can obviously assign, like you said, and there's like a delegation task. But he said here, this looks like a really nice way to have iterating directly inside of the IDE, which is great. Here's a good question for you too from Tamed, is any best practices when delegating to the coding agent as far as the instructions to make sure that you get a pretty good PR out of it? Like, what have you found as far as like the context that you need to kind of like send off to the agent?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've found sometimes asking it to specifically scope its work to like just the certain task, because I find there's two different scenarios. Either there's like a really specific task I want it to work on that either I'm not sure how to tackle, or I just don't really have the time or focus to be able to work on that right now. Like I used it for, I had noticed, in one of our tooltips, the capitalization didn't match capitalization in other tooltips. And I didn't know exactly where that tooltip was, and I could have gone and searched for it myself. But instead I just said, hey, this tooltip doesn't match in capitalization. Make sure it matches what the official product name should be. And I think I even sent it a screenshot. So something that's cool is both in our local agent mode here, and then when we delegate to the coding agent, we can include screenshots in our input to give the agent a little bit more input into what I'm working on. And so I delegated that off to the coding agent. And then when I looked at the changed files quickly from the PR, I was a little surprised, because I was like, I thought this would be maybe a 1 or 2 file change, but there were some more changes. And so then that's when it was helpful to go through like these session logs to see how it thought about that. Why did it make other changes? And I realized that it kind of decided along the way of, hey, you know what? I want to update some of the other tooltips in your project, and I'm going to do that too, which if I wanted it to be creative and I wanted it just to do like a nice edit pass over my whole project, I might have said, wow, that's really cool. That's helpful. But in this scenario, I was like, I really only wanted you to update that one tooltip. And so then I sent a follow-up and said, hey, don't get too creative. Just focus on that one tooltip and undo the other changes. And so I think giving Copilot that context of when you want it to be exploratory and you're working on this broad plan and you want to A, B, C, D, E test different things, I think that's cool to give it the free reign of, hey, explore different things, think what you think is best for users or follow best practices. But other times, if you're really focused on a specific task, trying to be as specific as possible with that and scoping Copilot, I found to be helpful.
Very cool. It makes a lot of sense. Is there any new features that people should like take a look at that are like coming out? I know we have it's the beginning of the month, which means there's always exciting releases. Like I know you're in insiders here. Is everything you're showing also in stable, or where should people go to kind of check some of the stuff out that you have today? Like,
yeah, I think that the two calls to action would be to enable the chat sessions view and to install the pull request extension if folks don't have that already. I think with both of those, that's really going to give you pretty much the latest features that we've been working on at Insiders. And our team has really been hard at work at like adding new features here and polishing existing ones and really trying to make this flow as smooth and cohesive as possible. So that way you really can move through these different like chat and in editor features. You can move between .com and in editor smoothly and you can follow along. Just things with being able to track your progress and your status. You can see that we're notified that, hey, we have 4 PRs to review from the coding agent here. We can see which one is spinning and which one's in progress. If we go to the status bar area here, we can say, hey, we have a coding agent session in progress. If I had a local agent mode session in progress, I would also get a separate spinner here to indicate that. And so we're really trying to add these different entry points to make it as smooth and seamless to work with the coding agent, move between things, manage your work. So we'd love to get feedback as folks try this out, as you create new coding agent sessions, as you delegate with the cloud button. How does it work? What are tips and tricks that you think that we should add more? We have docs on this as well. Let me pull up in the browser. So on the VS Code doc site, we have a whole section dedicated to the coding agent and our integration there, and we try to keep this updated. So if you find something of like, hey, this worked well, but it's not in your docs, or hey, this feels like a tip and trick you should add to your docs, that's also really great feedback. So we want to make sure that this is as clear as everyone as possible for getting started too.
very cool. This is awesome. Yeah, some good comments in the chat. Someone's like, it's kind of like an assistant that can kind of help out with stuff. This is a good question from Eric on cost savings with Copilot. Do you want to talk about maybe how these premium requests work? Like these agents are often going, like people might be used to, chatting and how those premium requests work. How does that work in the background? It's more of a GitHub billing question, but yeah. I know that so.
I think that kind of the best spot here is I have on GitHub docs. If you just search up or specifically go to this URL about the Copilot coding agent, it'll give you an insight of like what it can do and more of some of those like service side things and billing and behind the scenes implementation details. So this is probably the best place to check out since I know things are changing there. And so this will be kept up to date with kind of what the latest is there. I would say in general, if you're doing still like local planning and conversing, and something as well that I didn't quite show off is, so we have a PR checked out. We have pull request 22 checked out. You can actually then chat with Copilot locally about your current remote PR and remote coding agent session. So I could say for active pull request, explain the changes in this PR, and I can discuss locally. But as you do any of these kinds of local conversations, whether it was the planning or now this discussion over my remote coding agent session and PR, that'll still count as your normal chat requests if you're doing these things like locally. And so
that might be a good use case for a little GPT-5 mini 0x multiplier on the unlimited premium requests.
Yes. Yeah. And this was another call out too for something that's been recently added in the last few weeks or last few iterations. Wow. This hash active pull request that can explain the current PR that's checked out. Or if you don't want to even check out a PR, but you just wanted to open one up and learn more about it, we also have hash open PR. So I can say, explain the changes in this open PR, and to explain that to me too. And so this is another great way that you can keep iterating, see what's going on there, and kind of move between local and remote.
All right, feature request, check out, refresh, explain. Give me an explain button next to it, and I'll send it to the chat. So come on,
that's good feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about more buttons. I have some I know you got to go. And this has been awesome. I do we'll have a feature request that I want to just tell you and not tell anyone else, because then it's going to show up and then we'll have you back on the show to talk about it. Because I think this new idea that I have is pretty great. So cool. Well, I put all those links into the docs, which is awesome. So someone said the GitHub Copilot plans are at Costco prices. I like that. They're good. They are a great deal. Well, Brigit, thanks so much for coming on and showing this all off. I love it.
Thanks so much, James. This was a ton of fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone. Give the coding agent a try. Literally, like, is one premium request for each big thing that you send. So each one of those are there, and then if you follow up, that would be like another one on it. But just go have it do something in your app. Assign it a bug, assign it an issue. Open it up, give it an idea. Next time it's 5 p.m. I just really want to go hang out with my family. Just send it off, do a thing. I challenge everybody that's watching, go assign something to GitHub Copilot right now. I will also say, if for some reason you don't see those buttons on there, one, your code does need to be on GitHub. And then the other thing is, make sure that you have GitHub Copilot coding agent enabled. So I'm going to put a link here. There's two. It's in those docs that I sent, but go to your GitHub Copilot features, make sure it's on. And then there's also another setting called the coding agent one. Now, I don't know if they've changed this, Brigit, but before, basically it was off by default on your repos and you had to turn it on for specific or all. I don't know if they changed that now that it's generally available or not. So I already changed it on that page to all repositories. So if you don't see it, you got to enable it. If you don't have it enabled, what happens? Will it pop up until you need to enable it, or does it not show up? Do you know?
So you won't see the cloud button. So even if you have everything installed and configured and you feel like, oh, I'm missing that cloud button, what's going on there? It's because it's not enabled for your current repo, or your current repo is not on GitHub.
Go turn it on, people. All right, that's my challenge to all of you. Let us know. Hit us up on Twitter or YouTube comments what you build. Send us your PR. We'd love to see it. All right, Brigit, thanks for coming on and showing this awesome stuff off, and hope to see you again soon.
Thanks.
Bye-bye, everyone. Happy coding.